The hospital corridors were silent at midnight, except for the rhythmic beep of machines and the muffled cries coming from a corner of the ER. There, sitting alone under the harsh fluorescent lights, was Daniel, a single dad with tears streaming down his face, clutching his son's tiny hand. His world was falling apart, and no one around him seemed to notice. But just as he whispered a desperate prayer into the darkness, a gentle voice behind him said, "I know that pain too." That voice would change everything. Daniel had spent the past 7 years building a fragile life for his son, Liam, after losing his wife to cancer. He worked double shifts as a mechanic, sometimes skipping meals just to afford Liam's school and medical bills. His little boy was his whole world, a curious, bright-eyed 6-year-old who believed his dad could fix anything. But that night, Daniel felt powerless. Liam had collapsed suddenly at home, struggling to breathe. By the time they reached the hospital, the doctors were rushing him to emergency care, leaving Daniel outside the cold doors, clutching his son's backpack like a lifeline. He tried to stay strong, pacing the hallway, whispering to himself, "He's strong like his mom, he'll make it." But hours passed, and no one came out. The weight of helplessness crushed him. He dropped to his knees, head buried in his hands. His rough palms were shaking, palms that had fixed hundreds of cars but couldn't fix his boy. That's when he felt a soft touch on his shoulder. A woman stood there, elegant but weary, her eyes reflecting the same sorrow that filled his. Her presence felt calm, almost angelic in the sterile chaos of the ER. "I'm sorry," she said gently. "I couldn't help but see. I know that pain too." Daniel blinked, confused and guarded. "You don't know me," he murmured, his voice breaking. The woman nodded. "You're right. But I know what it's like to wait on the other side of those doors. To beg God to spare the only piece of your heart you have left." Her name was Evelyn Ward, a name Daniel didn't recognize. To him, she was just a stranger who somehow understood. Evelyn didn't tell him she was one of the city's most powerful philanthropists, a billionaire widow who'd lost her husband and daughter in a car accident years ago. Tonight, she had come to the hospital to donate new pediatric equipment, but fate had brought her face to face with Daniel instead. They sat in silence for a while. Daniel told her about his son, about how Liam wanted to be a pilot one day, and how every night they'd look at airplanes flying over their tiny apartment and make wishes. Evelyn listened with tears in her eyes. Then the doctor appeared. His expression was serious. "Mr. Reed, your son has a severe infection. We'll do everything we can, but he needs surgery. And it's expensive." The words hit Daniel like thunder. He didn't even have enough for the rent this month, let alone surgery. "Can't there be another way?" he asked, voice trembling. "Please, I just need time." The doctor shook his head. "We can't wait." Daniel's chest tightened. His hands trembled as he pulled out his wallet, empty except for a photo of Liam and his late wife smiling at the beach. "I'll find the money," he whispered, though he had no idea how Evelyn stood quietly behind him. Then she stepped forward. "I'll cover it," she said simply. Daniel froze. "What? No, you can't. I don't even know you." She smiled faintly. "You don't have to. I just know what it means to love someone that much." He stared at her, disbelief mixing with gratitude and pride. "I can't let you." "You can," she said softly. "Because someday, you'll help someone else the same way." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. For the first time that night, he wasn't alone. Hours later, as dawn crept through the hospital windows, the surgeon came out with a tired smile. "He's stable. The surgery went well." Daniel let out a cry, a mix of relief and exhaustion. He hugged the doctor, then turned to Evelyn. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. Evelyn smiled, her own eyes glistening. "Just be there for him. That's all he'll ever need." Days passed, and Evelyn continued visiting. She brought storybooks for Liam, coffee for Daniel, and a quiet strength that filled their hospital room with warmth. Liam quickly grew fond of her, calling her Miss Evie. Daniel found himself opening up more each day, learning that beneath her wealth and poise, Evelyn carried an ocean of loss, her husband and daughter gone in a single night. "I used to hate hospitals," she told him once, her voice trembling. "But helping others here, it's how I keep their memory alive." When Liam finally recovered enough to go home, Evelyn insisted on driving them. Her sleek black car felt out of place next to their crumbling apartment building, but she didn't seem to care. "Home is where love lives," she said, helping Liam out with a smile. That night, Daniel stood by the window, looking out at the stars. For the first time in years, he didn't feel hopeless. He remembered Evelyn's words about turning pain into purpose. Weeks later, Evelyn invited them both to her foundation's charity event. Daniel hesitated, feeling out of place among the city's elite, but Evelyn assured him it wasn't about appearances, it was about stories of resilience. When it was time to speak, Evelyn walked on stage, looked at the crowd, and said, "Pain is universal, but so is hope. Tonight, I met a man who reminded me that love and courage can rebuild anything." Then she gestured toward Daniel and Liam in the front row. "They reminded me that giving doesn't always come from wealth. Sometimes, it comes from the heart that refuses to give up." The crowd rose in applause, but Daniel's eyes stayed on Evelyn. He realized she hadn't just saved his son, she had given him back faith in the goodness of people. As the night ended, Evelyn whispered to him, "We both lost something we can't replace. But maybe, in helping each other, we found something we didn't know we needed." Daniel looked at her, eyes soft. "Family doesn't always come by blood, does it?" Evelyn smiled. "No," she said quietly. "Sometimes, it's chosen by pain and healed by love." The camera would fade on that moment, two souls who met in the darkest hour and turned their broken pieces into light, and somewhere in that quiet night sky, a little boy's laughter echoed, proof that even in the hardest moments, hope never truly dies.